It was past midnight when I finally gave up on trying to sleep. After hours of tossing and turning, I slipped out of bed, craving the comfort of cool water. As I padded softly down the hallway, the faint glow of the living room lights caught my attention. Memories of the past few days surged forward, unbidden, filling my mind. That night had been different from anything I had experienced in a long time. Ethan, my cousin, had sent Leo to stay with me for a while. When Ethan told me what had happened to him, my heart ached. Leo's world had shattered in the most devastating way imaginable. His wife had betrayed him, and in an instant his entire life crumbled. The man who had been married to the same woman for over a decade was blindsided by the cruelty of it all. Ethan's voice still echoed in my mind, pleading, "Millie, please take him in. He needs a place to heal, somewhere peaceful." I barely knew Leo. We'd exchanged pleasantries at family gatherings, but he was practically a stranger. Still, something tugged at me. I knew pain all too well. My husband, Daniel, had been taken from me suddenly 8 years ago, his heart giving out without warning. One moment, we were making plans for our dream home. The next, I was alone, left to piece together a life without him. For years, I carried the weight of that loss, but lately, the loneliness had become unbearable. The empty space beside me felt like an unhealed wound, throbbing with each passing day. That night, the ache inside me was sharper than ever, and I couldn't ignore it. As I entered the living room, I saw Leo sitting alone on the couch, the glow of the TV casting soft shadows over his features. A romantic movie played quietly in the background, its tender moments only adding to the weight in the room. He turned to me when he noticed my presence, his eyes clouded with a mix of guilt and exhaustion. "Did I wake you up?" His voice was soft, hesitant. I shook my head, offering a smile that felt too fragile to be real. "No, I just came to get some water." The truth, however, was that I hadn't just come for water. The emptiness inside me was pressing too hard, and maybe sitting with someone would ease the loneliness, if only for a little while. "Want some company?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Leo nodded, the faintest flicker of relief in his eyes. He motioned to the empty space beside him on the couch. "Sure, I could use a little company." I hesitated for just a moment before sitting down next to him. The movie played on, but I found it hard to focus. The couple on screen, exchanging tender glances and gentle touches, stirred something deep inside me, something I had buried long ago. Then, by chance, my arm brushed against Leo's. I pulled away quickly, my heart skipping a beat. "Sorry," I muttered, my face flushing. "It's okay," he said softly, his calm demeanor only making the tension between us feel more intense. Suddenly, the space between us seemed impossibly small, and I couldn't understand why the air felt so charged, so heavy. When the movie ended, I stood up abruptly, murmuring something about needing to sleep. My mind was racing, a whirlwind of emotions I hadn't felt in years. The restless thoughts kept me awake, and that night I barely slept. By morning, I sought refuge in the piano, hoping that the familiar melody would calm my frantic mind. Music had always been my solace, a way to connect with Daniel, with the life we had shared. My fingers glided over the keys, each note bringing a sense of peace, until I noticed a shadow outside the window. It was Leo, returning from an early morning walk. Moments later, he stepped inside, standing quietly in the doorway, listening to the music as I played. When I finally noticed him, I stopped, startled. "Don't stop," he said with a smile, his voice low and sincere. That was beautiful, the best thing I've heard in ages. I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." There was something about his presence that unsettled me, though I couldn't bring myself to pull away. I focused on the piano, but his quiet gaze made my fingers falter. After a long pause, Leo spoke again, breaking the silence. "Did you know," he began, his voice almost hesitant, "it's my birthday today? 40 years old." His words caught me off guard. "Really?" I replied, the surprise evident in my tone. I had this idea forming in my mind, a sudden spark of inspiration. We should celebrate, I thought. A cake, some wine, maybe that would be enough. As I spoke, Leah's face lit up. "I'd like that," she said, her voice full of warmth. "But only if you play the piano for me again tonight." Her words settled in the space between us, and I felt a smile tug at my lips. That request, simple yet profound, felt like the perfect way to mark the evening. As we sat together, the wine flowing freely, the atmosphere between us lightened. Laughter bubbled up, our conversation ebbing and flowing. But underneath it all, there was something deeper, a current of unspoken words that seemed to connect us in a way that no conversation ever could. It wasn't long before Leo, in his quiet way, asked me again. "Please, play for me," he said. I could hear the sincerity in his voice. I didn't hesitate. With a soft sigh, I agreed. My fingers found the keys, and as the first note spilled into the room, it was as if the music itself became a language. I poured everything I had into the melody, each note unfolding like a story between us. There were no words necessary. The connection we shared through the piano transcended anything I could have said aloud. As the final note faded, I felt a soft, grounding pressure on my hand. Leo had moved beside me, his presence so close that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. His hand gently covered mine, his touch soft but unmistakably real. "You're incredible," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, stirring something deep inside me. The moment hung in the air, charged with something I couldn't quite name. It felt like time had stopped, like we were the only two people left in the world. Everything around us seemed to fall away, the space between us shrinking until there was nothing but the weight of his words and the rhythm of my heartbeat. But by the time the night gave way to morning, everything had changed. The weight of what had happened pressed down on both of us, leaving an aching silence where once there was laughter. Leo was in the kitchen making coffee, his movements deliberate and slow. When our eyes met, something unspoken passed between us, a shared understanding, sharp and painful. "Lily," he said, his voice steady, yet thick with an undercurrent of emotion. "What happened last night, it was a mistake. We can't let this continue." I felt a hollow ache settle in my chest. My voice was barely a whisper. "You're right," I murmured. "This isn't fair to either of us." The words hurt more than I expected, each one heavy with the weight of what we had shared and what had to be left behind. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity, the gravity of our decision sinking in. It was the hardest choice I'd ever had to make, but it was the only way forward. Leo left that afternoon, and as the door clicked shut behind him, I was left alone with the echo of his presence in my heart. The connection we'd shared, though fleeting, had changed something inside me. Even as it faded, it left a mark, a reminder that, even in the darkest moments, there is a possibility of something more. Hope or healing, or simply the strength to move on. Days stretched into weeks, and life, in its relentless rhythm, began to settle back into routine I had known. Yet every so often, my thoughts wandered back to Leo, to that night, those moments that had stirred emotions I thought I had long buried. The piano became my refuge once again. It was the one place where I could lose myself, where the melodies could carry my thoughts, my reflections, my unspoken feelings. One evening, as my fingers danced across the keys, I saw a familiar figure standing just outside my window. For a moment, my heart skipped a beat, a rush of memories flooding my chest. But it wasn't Leo. No, it was someone else, a shadow of the past, a reminder that life moves forward, regardless of what we leave behind. As the melody filled the room, I understood something that I hadn't fully grasped before. Some chapters of our lives must close, even if it hurts. But the memories they leave behind, those fleeting, precious moments, can be the guiding light that leads us to new beginnings, to the next chapter, to something we're yet to understand.